All right, Market Heroes, we're back. We're getting into some really, really cool stuff now. Actually, I think this whole course is really cool, but I think we're really starting to get to the juicy stuff. We're really starting to get into how to take trades that are supposed to be profitable X amount of time and double or triple that. So this is really, really exciting stuff. Now, I want to take a step back real quick. Conventional wisdom is a lot of what we talk about here in Market Hero, and the types of conventional wisdom being what you would normally hear on CNBC or in typical Wall Street circle conversations or Bloomberg or Investors Business Daily or any stuff that's readily available online. The conventional wisdom is wrong. And cutting your losses is one I want to look into right now, which is really, really exciting for me. So conventional wisdom obviously would say you want to cut your losses, right? Why would you want to lose money? Why would you want to lose money? Of course, you wouldn't want to lose money. This makes a little bit of sense. But again, we put a lot of things to numbers and a lot of things to studies. Let's try to prove if cutting your losses is the right way to go. So everyone knows this guy, right? Warren Buffett. He's probably the world's most famous investor. He's made like a gazillion dollars, and he says a lot of things. And one of his rules is never lose money, right? One of his rules is never lose money. And one of the ways that he does that is this concept of, cut your losses and let your winners run, right? So if you cut your losses at, let's say, 5% and you let your winners run, well, you might have some 5% losses. But if you let your winners run, you have like 30-40% gains. In theory, that works. In practice, maybe not so much. So we're going to get into that one too. So I want to take a step back to a couple of lessons ago. We talked about delta. So delta obviously are the chances an option expires in the money at expiration. So for a put, that would be the chances the stock's price would be below the price of the put at expiration. And in the money at expiration for a call would be the opposite. So the chance of the stock is above the call at expiration. So that's in the money. And delta is the chances that an option is going to have that happen to it at expiration or be in the money, right? So that's just expiring in the money. But a question is, but what about the chances it touches the strike, right? It touches the strike at expiration. So let's go over here to the platform real quick. And let's go to this expiration cycle. So we have delta here. And the question is, if we sell this 250 strike call, it has a 17 delta. So again, SPY has a 17% chance in 34 days of being above 250, right? Which means it has an 83% chance of being below 250. So that's what that means. But the question is, 34 days is a long time. Stocks can fluctuate up and down, and the SPY also can fluctuate up or down. So what are the chances that it touches 250, that it just taps it one time and then doesn't actually expire above it, or it does expire, but it doesn't matter. But what are the chances that it actually touches it? Well, my argument is that it's 2 times delta. So my argument is, if there's a 17% chance based off of 17 delta that SPY is going to expire in 34 days above 250 or be above 250 in 34 days, that this call will be in the money at that point. There's a 34% chance, remember 2 times delta, that it can get up to there, right? So that it can get up to 250 at some point in the next 34 days. So there's a big difference there, guys. But this is really, really, really important to understand. So what we did was, well, first, why is this important to understand, right? This is important to understand because the concept of cutting your losses has to do with just touching a number as opposed to expiring at that number. So for example, if we bought SPY, actually no, that's jumping ahead. I don't want to do that. So let's go back to here. So what we did to see if 2 times delta is the probability that the stock is going to touch a certain strike, we did a study to be able to find that. So we did our same data set. So 1990 to 2000 present, over 27 years of data in the SPY. Again, we do it in SPY because it's the most liquid product in the world and the data is the most readily available, right? So we do it there. And what we did was this. We sold the 30 delta put in the monthly expiration cycle every single day. We did this every single day in the monthly expiration cycle as close as 50 days away from that point. So the theory is, if we sold the 30 delta put, we have a 70% chance of making money, which means there's a 30% chance that SPY, when we put the trade on, closes the expiration cycle below that 30 delta put, or that 30 delta put is in the money, remember, because that's what delta means, at the time of expiration. So what we did was we tracked how many times the price of SPY got down to that put, right? So again, we want to know what are the chances that it touches that put, just touches that put in at some point in the expiration cycle, right? Just touches it one time. And here are the results. So again, the theory that I came up with was 2 times delta is the chances a stock will touch the strike of the option. And that 30 delta put gives us an expected outcome of 60% of the time that SPY will trade down to that put at some point in the expiration cycle. That actually came out really damn close to 59%. So to me, it's actually a pretty decent bet. That SPY, that 2 times delta is the probability of touch. Remember, we did this over 27 years of testing it. So there were bull markets and bear markets in between. There's a really big enough sample size to do it. And again, it's the 30 delta put. If there's a 30 delta put, the chances of that put expiring in the money are 30%. The chances of the stock getting down to that strike price in the expiration cycle are 2 times that delta, or about 60%. And we actually showed, based off of our study, that that's actually quite accurate. So 2 times delta can be understood as the chances a stock touches. The chances a stock touches the actual strike price. So let's go through a couple examples here. If we have a price target of 256 for SPY, what are the chances that in 34 days SPY is going to expire above 246, or the 246 strike is going to finish in the money? Remember, for expiration, it's the delta. So there's a 41% chance SPY in 34 days is going to be above 246. However, we just proved, based off this study here, that 2 times delta are the chances a stock touches the price of the put. Since there's a 41% chance that it expires in the money, there's an 82% chance that it's going to touch 246 at some point in the next 34 days. So now this is interesting. When we're talking about price targets, this is really, really interesting now. Now, what about the 249 strike? Let's say our price target was 249, right? In the next 34 days, there's a 23% chance that in 34 days from now, there's a 23% chance SPY is going to be above 249, but a 46% chance that it touches it. So that's slightly less than 50-50. However, you still have some real context on how realistic it is that your price target will get hit in the next 34 days. So that's where it gets really, really interesting. Now, back to our friend, Mr. Buffett. Remember, the world's most renowned investor. He says, never lose money, cut your losses, and let your winners run. Now, we just talked about price targets here. Like, for example, there's a 23% chance SPY in 34 days is above 249. However, there's a 46% chance that it touches 249 at some point in the next 34 days. That holds true for stop losses as well. Remember, one of the things that Warren Buffett has is cut your losses and let your winners run. If you cut your losses, you need some sort of a stop loss. So never lose more than 5% is kind of the industry agreed on stop loss. So why are we talking about stop losses here? Well, the reason we're talking about stop losses here is stop losses come in effect not at expiration. They come into effect at any point in time. As soon as the stock, or as soon as your position is down 5%, the stop loss is triggered. That is the probability of touch, right? So that is the chances something gets touched. So this is why it's really, really critical. We can find out if a 5% stop loss is a good idea or not based off of the fact that we now know that 2 times delta are the chances a strike price, the stock comes down to the strike price and touches it once in the expiration cycle. So Warren Buffett is more of a long-term type investor. So we're going to go out to the end of the year. So let's say Warren Buffett bought SPY, and we were going to follow his rule where he said, you know what? We don't want to take any losses greater than 5%. So what they're going to do is they're going to go out, they're going to go ahead and buy SPY for whatever it is. And again, his rule is never lose more than 5%. So this is really, really interesting. So let's find out. 5% lower than we are right now is 231.94. I think we can agree that is the 232 strike. So I'm just going to highlight it right here, the 232 strike. I'm going to put it in view because it's quite important. So let's just get this out there. What are the chances that SPY finishes the December expiration cycle, so in 125 days, is below 232, which again is 5% below the market? There's only about a 29% chance that happens, so there's a 71% chance SPY is going to be above it. However, what are the chances that at some point in the next 125 days, SPY gets down and trades at 232? Well, according to the study that we just had, it's 2 times the delta. Right now we have a delta of 29. 29 times 2 is 58. So what Warren Buffett is effectively saying, which he may or may not even know, is, or at least in this scenario, we would be placing a stop loss where we have a 58% chance of getting stopped out. That's some heavy, heavy stuff. We will have a 58% chance of getting stopped out here. That's horrible. Why would you ever take a trade where you have a greater than 50% chance of being wrong? And in fact, you have a 58% chance of not only being wrong by 5% and losing 5% of your money. That's outrageous. That's absolutely crazy. So this is some crazy stuff. So the question that we kind of set out to have, at the beginning of this is like, do you cut your losses? Right? And again, then it turned out to be 2 times delta is the chances that a stock trades to one of our option strike prices, right? Then Warren Buffett comes out and says, cut your losses at 5%. Okay? So we're just doing basic math here. We're going out to the end of the year, 125 days from now, and the only reason we're doing that as opposed to a shorter time frame is because Warren Buffett is more of a long-term investor type, right? And what we find is there's a 29 delta. If we multiply that by 2, we have a 58% chance of at some point in the next 125 days, that SPY trades down to 232. If we were like Warren Buffett and we put in a 5% stop loss, we would get stopped out at a maximum loss of 5%. And it would happen at a rate of 58%. That is absolutely horrific. So stop losses are an absolute scam. Unless you're going to have a much greater stop loss, like upwards of 10%, which I would never recommend. It's not the way to go. So again, if you want to find out the chances that a stock is going to touch a price at a certain point in the expiration cycle, it's 2 times delta. A 5% stop loss is the conventional wisdom. Is the conventional wisdom on Wall Street of where your stop loss should be. If you do that right now, in the next 125 days, you have a 58% chance of losing 5%. Not only losing a penny, you have a 58% chance of losing all your money. So then the question is, if cutting your losses doesn't work, how do we manage our positions? Because there's got to be a way to manage our positions properly as opposed to just like let them go forever. We'll get to that in the next video.